the details that we have been exploring in blockchain as a transformational technology for government. I was very pleased to hear the gentleman from Mahindra and some of the other panelists talk about the potential applications of this as a transformative general purpose technology for government, not just from a cost savings perspective, but from a fundamental service reinvention perspective. So I've actually scrapped the title of the talk and I've called it All Blockchain All the Time. How Dubai is going to put 100% of the government on a blockchain or blockchains in the next 2 years or less. Sounds a little bit crazy, so I just want to give you a little context. Like, imagine yourself, you have a business. You're a business owner, and you're looking to expand. You're in shipping, for example. You're looking to expand your operations. So you hire some consultants, some business analysts. You look at your customers. You do some interviews, and they come back to you and they say they think the market can bear a fourfold increase in your operations. That's a pretty healthy approach. But you actually think that you might be able to significantly scale beyond that approach. So what do? You have your experts telling you can only do something the fourfold, but you think you can do something bigger. Do you listen to them? Do you do what you say? Do you maybe just keep your business as it is and just wait and see? Or do you follow your instincts as an entrepreneur and you make a bigger bet? Right, so raise your hand. Do you just do it? Do you do what the experts say? No? Do you just wait and see? Huh? Anyone follow your instincts and do the big thing? No, naturally, this is a bunch of entrepreneurs, so I'm happy to see that. But this was exactly a situation that Dubai faced in 1972 for its major port, Port Rashid. There was a plan to expand 4 new bays for shipping, and instead Sheikh Rashid said, no, 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 no. I think that big change is coming, and we have a lot of potential, and therefore he expanded to 14 ports, and that became the foundation of basically Dubai from 1970s onwards. And now, Jebel Ali, just one port, one of the world's largest shipping container ports. Dubai Ports World has 77 container operations across the globe. So this sense of betting big on something that you think is going to be a big deal is inherent in Dubai's DNA, as many of you know. I'll give you one more example as well. This clipper. There we go. So again, you're doing a business. You have a big customer who comprises about 70% of your business. And they tell you, either you go exclusive with us, or we're pulling our business, and you have 3 days to decide. Again, what do? Do what they say, close down your business and say, I don't like the way you're dealing with me, or do you say, you know what, I don't like the way that we're doing business together, I'm going to risk it all and go and do my own way. This exactly is what happened in 1985 with Emirates Airlines. So Dubai airports, 70% of its air traffic came from Gulf Air, a regional conglomerate. Gulf Air said, we don't like your open skies policy, we want exclusive landing rights. You have 3 days to decide. Sheikh Mohammed said, no thanks, and created Emirates Airlines in 3 days. And now the world's busiest airport, the world's biggest one of the world's best airlines, etc. So these are just 2 examples to provide context for why, when we make a statement in the UAE that we're going to put 100% of government transactions on the blockchain. Sorry, the radio connection back here is quite poor for the clicker. When we say we're going to have 100% of all of our government transactions on a blockchain by 2020, that there's context for this. This doesn't just sound like a sort of insane aspirational vision. Yes, it's very ambitious, and that is the point, but we actually think that this is firmly capable, and we're able to deliver on this. And so when I say, you hear this, we're going to have 100% of our government transactions in the next 24 months at this point, what are you going to do? Are you going to wait around and see if that's true? Are you going to laugh and ignore us in this case, or do you want to bet big and move your entire company to Dubai? Well, obviously, I'm biased in this case. But I want to give you a little bit of context as to why this is an interesting example, the role that we've played in that in the Dubai Future Foundation, and how this might be relevant for you. So Dubai Future Foundation is a government-owned organization. We sit at the center of Dubai government. We help synthesize all of the different innovation activities going on across the different verticals. This is important because, as you know, most innovation teams are happening in a sectoral by sectoral basis, but most of the things that really matter are cross-sector transformations now. So our job is to help incubate partnerships and pilot projects and strategies that help Dubai prepare for, and the UAE prepare for these big transitions. These include the Museum of the Future, opening in 2019, the world's first and only 3D printed building in Dubai. That's my office. Again, a strategy commitment to put 25% have 25% of all of our buildings 3D printed by 2030. If we can advance here. Thank you. And Dubai Future Accelerators, which I'll mention at the beginning. So all of this, Global Blockchain Council. This started a year and a half ago, a little over a year and a half ago, where we were interested in trying to understand what is the potential of blockchain. And so we convened 48 different public, private sector, regulator, banks, financial services, multinationals, small startups, individuals, academics, into what was at the time, and I believe still is, the largest multi-stakeholder coalition of people exploring the potentials of blockchain. We socialized and understood what these ideas were all about. We developed 18 pilot projects, individual in everyone's silos and circumstances. Next slide, please. Can I just ask you guys to cue the slides? And that led to this commitment around 100% of all the transactions going on blockchain. How did we get from, in 6 months, what is blockchain, to we're going to put all of our jet fuel on making this happen? Well, it's because we had all of the key ecosystems and the players in the ecosystems together in a room just like this. And we met every month, from the CEOs down to the startups, and we're asking, what does this mean for you? What's the potential for you? What are the risks? What are the opportunities? And then we started encouraging them, because at the time, Bitcoin and blockchain were very close in people's minds. It was very difficult for people to differentiate between the darknet and Dread Pirate Roberts and terrorist financing and blockchain as a general purpose technology. So we came to a common understanding of what the potential was, and then gave them permission to start to explore and innovate in these areas. This is a pre-legal space, so there were people afraid they were going to get arrested and shut down. So we're saying, no, we're the government, please do this. And then out of that, industry came back to us and said, okay, we've done these pilot projects, we get it. What are you going to do to support us? How are we going to go forward? And so that was then the context for this very bold and ambitious strategy. Next slide, please. So there's three main pillars to this strategy. The first is government efficiency. This was mentioned before. I'll share a little example of that. The second is industry creation. We believe this is going to unlock an extraordinary opportunity for private sector businesses to get involved, not just in the government efficiency and the government transformation example, but in creating new sectors and new industries themselves. And the third, which I think is most interesting given the way the sort of geopolitics of the world are going, is international leadership. So if you talk about digital KYC and sovereign recognition of identity and what that means for bilateral relationships and trade, then there's a whole new opportunity there. So next slide, please. So government efficiency, simple example. When I moved to the UAE 7 years ago, I got my PhD from MIT. MIT wasn't one of the approved universities because it was an institute, not a university. So I had to go and take my physical degree certificate, take it to the US State Department. I was living in London at the time. They had to attest it. They had to send it and take it to the UAE Foreign Office. They had to attest it, take it to the UAE Embassy in London. They had to attest it, take it to my employer in the UAE. So this whole thing took about 6 weeks, one piece of paper to like 7 or 8 different documents. I'm sure you all have experienced this. Most people's interactions with government bureaucracy is some version of this. Take a single piece of paper to 25 different people. By the time you get back to the first, the rules have changed and you have to start all over again, right? So example, buying a car. Today in Dubai, you have to take 50 pages of documents more or less to 7 different people to just simply buy a car. Next slide, please. Obviously, if you put all this stuff on a form of a blockchain or distributed ledger, then you just have one point of interaction, right? And a set of agreements and relationships for information sharing, which enable you to say, is Noah who he says he is? Does he have the finances in his account, or has the bank given him a loan for this? Does the person who's selling this car own the car or not? Is he eligible for a transfer? So all of this stuff is very easy to automate and smooth out. So next slide, please. So when we were looking at this, the real killer, the real selling point for this was that actually, because of all of this documentation and inefficiencies, we estimated that we process about 100 million pages of documents in the city of Dubai alone every year, which sounds like a lot, but there's only 5 million people living in Dubai, about 7.5, 8 million in the UAE. I mean, still, compared to India, it's a fraction, right? So imagine the amount of, well, you don't have to imagine, we all live this every day, the amount of paperwork and inefficiency that we have to deal with. Next slide, please. Just driving around creating dealing with these paperworks for our day-to-day lives of incorporating businesses and stuff, we estimated was about 411 million kilometers driven every year. So that's from here to Mars and back again 4 times. If you just look at the man hours, the person hours saved, and reducing the inefficiencies around that, you're talking about $1.5 billion a year in just saved value. For context, that's the entire cost of the Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest building. So you could build a brand new Burj Khalifa every year just by making government more efficient, right? So that was what drove the government efficiency argument. The second part is the industry creation. Next slide, please. So let's take, this is where things start to get really fun, because of course when you're dealing with blockchain, you can start to get into smart contracts, which means just programmable information. So next slide. Let's say I have a house. My house has a series of features: size, location, price, how I want to sell it, when I want to sell it. Next slide, please. You want to buy a house. You have what you can afford, where you want it to be, how much you're willing to pay, etc. Next slide. Right, so you just write a little script. The blockchain that enables is just a third-party interaction to go out and just toggle through the next couple slides here. This little animation. Your script goes out, meets my script. we make babies, everything exchanges, right? You buy my house, everything's transacted instantly. Now the thing that's really interesting aside from that, this is the private sector efficiency argument, next slide please, is that this enables you to have platform effects. So all of that then means automatically you can toggle notification of moving services, the furniture sales, the furniture agencies or department stores in your neighborhood can give you a discount, school registration fees, medical records, all of these things start to get interrelated in a way which is much smoother and more efficient and frictionless and makes life better. The last one, which is particularly interesting, is around international leadership. So right now, most passport visa control things are based on sovereign KYC, right? Sorry, go back for a second. And this is done through long bilateral agreements, and you might have visas on arrival, you might have e-visas, you might have some sort of digital form of passports. But what's very interesting about this is once the UAE establishes a sovereign recognized KYC solution, which digital ID is the core of this whole system, right? Then we can begin to extend that or open that system to our trusted partners, right? So if you have a visa on arrival agreement already, okay, you're the United States, you're UK, you're Singapore, you're France. Why not just put your information on your blockchain and just interoperate with us, and suddenly you don't have to have a passport control when you arrive, right? So this is the longer term potential of this, is you're starting to talk about a global KYC solution which will enable inter-country transfer of people, assets, value significantly faster and more efficiently. So next slide, please. The other part about this international component is skills development and knowledge creation, right? So we just recently graduated with Consensus, the Consensus Academy. There were about 3,500 applicants for a 50-person cohort. In this graduation about 2 weeks ago in Dubai, we increased the global supply of blockchain developers by 1% in one cohort. There's about 5,000 qualified blockchain developers. So trying to build the ecosystem there through training. Next slide, please. Through outreach. We've done several of these World Blockchain Forums. They're great. We'll invite you all to them soon. Next slide. And here's the update. Since this announcement, we've been doing all of this stuff. And when I say we, I mean mostly our partners in this, called the Smart Dubai office. This is the implementation arm of the Dubai government when it comes to most IoT projects, AI projects, and blockchain projects. So our role in the Future Foundation was to help write the strategy, socialize it, build the political support, get it launched, and now really Smart Dubai is doing an extraordinary job. So from when the strategy was announced in October of 2016, all of this stuff has been happening. Next slide, please. And this stuff is development of detailed business use cases for each of our government agencies and state-owned entities. So the technical challenge here is actually significant but relatively trivial compared to the social and political challenges of trying to figure out how do you use this in a real environment. Next slide, please. So we have 100, 150-page case studies on every single one of these use cases, everything from the land registry, which you probably have seen already, to biometrics, to vehicle purchases, financing, obtaining residencies, sponsoring visas, creating businesses. All of these things, all of these case studies are complete now. So we have something around the order of 35 to 37 different detailed business use case studies down to excruciating technical detail. Next slide, please. And so from basically now onwards, we're entering stage 3, which is actually to build these systems. So you're going to see in the coming 2 to 3 months a flood of RFPs, right? This is good news because actually, as you know, there are actually very few customers, like real customers for blockchain solutions. If you're a vendor or if you're working in this space, you might get somebody to fund a pilot project. The real money is in scammy ICOs, or in doing a platform coin, which then other people pay you to use. So we are encouraging everyone globally to participate in these. So keep your eye out. The way to keep your eye out, next slide please, is through this. We're converting the Global Blockchain Council into something we're calling the Global Blockchain Network. So this is going to be a website. We'll share this. It'll be publicized very loudly and far, which if you are a customer, if you are someone interested in a vendor in this space, if you're just an interested individual, you want to learn more, you want to get certified, this will be your central place for that, to find out where all the RFPs are, how you can be eligible and get involved. Next slide, please. The last one, too, is a program that we run called the Dubai Future Accelerators. This is, there's many accelerators globally, but this is actually quite a unique initiative. It's run entirely by government. We don't take any equity. The purpose of the program is to connect you with our major government partners. So we have 15 different government departments in our office, each of whom have a space, and they create transformational challenges. And they invite companies from around the world. If you have a demonstrable technology that you can test, you can be small. We have AI startups out of Mumbai, and we have IBM, we have Consensus, we have Honeywell, we have Uber, all come through here and say, we want to get exposure to the regulators who in the UAE context are also the biggest customers for this, and work together over a 9-week period on our dime, so we don't take any equity. We pay for you to come to Dubai and work with us and your main customers for 9 weeks to develop use cases, and then if you win, you get a contract out of it. So this is another major way for you to get involved if you're in blockchain, is almost all of our entities are doing live blockchain pilots, experiments, and commercial projects already right now. So DubaiFutureAccelerators.com. Next slide, please. I think this is the last slide. I want to end because I've been speaking very fast. I wanted to get through a lot. I wanted to convey the sense of excitement that we have around this, the fact that this is real and happening. Not only are we, I believe, the only government globally that has blockchain targets, but I think we're the only government globally that's actually rolling this out as a service across our entire government, and then enabling all sorts of private sector growth therein. So this seems a bit, this quote, the future belongs to those who affect radical change, not those who make gradual improvements. This seems like one of these things that you sort of see on a motivational poster in a management consultancy office, except this is the head of state. This is the Prime Minister of the UAE, right? So when you have a leader with that amount of influence and respect and authority, making a statement saying that, guys, we need to do things differently, we need to do things differently fast, and here's how we're going to do it, then you can have confidence, given the history of the United Arab Emirates and all of the kind of transformational work that's happened there, that it is going to happen. And so I'm here to extend an offer of friendship to you. The only way this is going to happen well is if you guys are involved. So please get in touch, and we look forward to helping build the future with you. Next slide, please. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, there's my email.